What's up guys, DRock1992 here. For this next video, I am going to be going over a lot of the major July 2015 films. Now I know it's a little bit late, as I'm doing this video right now, today's August 5th, but I'm going to get into the major July movies, like I've been doing for the rest of my months and all that. I'm pretty happy. I've done January, February, March, April, May, and June so far. Now this video will be July. So here we go. Let's dive right in. The first movie I'm going to be talking about is one I absolutely have no interest in seeing, and one I probably will never see in my lifetime because I just have no interest in this film. My mom went to see it, and she went to see Magic Mike XXL, or Magic Mike 2. She really liked the film. Overall, now, I mean, I'll just talk a little bit about this because it's not a film I'm interested in. It sees the return of Channing Tatum, Matt Bomer, Joe Manganiello, among others, and one noticeable absence is that Matthew McConaughey actually is not in the second one. He was in the first one in a more or less supporting role. So, with this one, the budget for this movie was $14.8 million. And it made $111.3 million box office-wise, so it was a big success. It was another success for this now franchise, basically. You know, made a lot of money, and here's an alarming statistic, first of all, that I found out. 92% of the audience who went to see this movie were women. 92%. That's way more than the first film did. You know, that's a lot more than the first movie did. I don't know what the percentage was for the first movie, but I just know 92%. So this is very much a chick flick. It's a chick flick for sure. So there you go. Also, some new characters in the movie. Amber Heard. I've talked about her before in some of the videos I've done. Jada Pinkett Smith, Will Smith's wife. Elizabeth Banks is in the film, best known for a lot of different movies. Now, reviews, 64% on Rotten Tomatoes. So, it wasn't as good as the first movie. I think the first movie got like an 80% or something like that. 80%, something in the 70s. Somewhere around there. But this one was a success for the most part, definitely. Not the success the first one was, but that's what you typically get with sequels. Sequels don't do quite as well, or not nearly as well as the originals. But Magic Mike XXL, it did alright on its own. So next film is Terminator Genesis, the fifth movie in the Terminator franchise. So another franchise film. So this one came off the disappointment that was Terminator Salvation. Terminator Salvation came to theaters in 2009. It was the fourth movie in the series. It didn't do extremely well. A lot of mixed opinions about that movie. Many probably negative opinions about that movie. Now, the first two films are universally acclaimed. They really are. You will not find a lot of people who hate those first two films. Not a lot of, you know, Arnold fans or science fiction fans. But Terminator Genesis, kind of fell into that same trap that Salvation did. First off, the rating. The critical response for this movie was 27%, which is not good. It's not a good review for it, and yeah, this movie was just a disappointment, critically. Box office wise, it was a relatively good success for a movie. $155 million budget and a box office of $317.8 million. That's good. That's a good movie right there. A good box office draw. So it got the box office, maybe not the box office totals they wanted, because I thought, when I'm looking at the box office, I would have thought it would have been higher, actually. But, like I said, Salvation was more or less a disappointment to a lot of fans. Maybe some fans were wary about going to see Terminator Genesis. But enough people went to see it where there was more, where it made pretty good money. So in this movie, one thing with Salvation was that Arnold wasn't in the movie. He basically wasn't in the movie. There was a motion capture performance of him. He did a motion capture uncredited performance, but basically he was not in the movie. He was in this movie, one of the main stars. You have Jason Clarke, Emilia Clarke, Jai Courtney, J.K. Simmons, and more in this movie. And just some of the people that were in the film. And so it did attract a bit of box office success. Maybe not as much as they wanted, but still good success. But it didn't get the critical reviews that they were probably hoping for. Next film on the list that I am going to be talking about. Actually, here's an interesting one. There was a documentary, or it was a documentary film. I'll just briefly get into this. There's a documentary film about British singer-songwriter Amy Winehouse. Amy Winehouse had her audience in America. She also had the audience in Britain as well. And it was definitely... she definitely had her popularity when she was with us. She, of course, died, I think it was a drug overdose of some sort, I believe it was. She passed away at 27 years old, the 27 Club. Basically, a lot of musicians have died at 27. Jimi Hendrix, Amy Winehouse, and more. But this movie was just a documentary film. It brought in $11.4 million on a budget of $2.3 to $3.1 million. So it was a success. Box office wise, for a documentary, it was a success. Critically, 97% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, so it was a very, very good rating. So, I just wanted to briefly do this because there's only one song I've ever really listened to from Amy Winehouse. It's that Rehab song, which I think is pretty good. But I do know a little bit about Amy Winehouse and the struggles that she had with drug addiction and all that, and those struggles took her life, basically. So it was a tragic life for her, and this documentary definitely depicted that. I didn't watch the documentary, but I think it did definitely depict that. So, the next film on the list is the animated film Minions. It is a spin-off of the Despicable Me movies. There were two, Despicable Me and Despicable Me 2. So Minions came around. And there were rumblings that this movie was going to be a huge success, and it was. There's a guy that I watch on YouTube that said that this movie could have made $1 billion. It could have made $1 billion easily. It didn't. On a budget of $74 million, it made only $859.3 million. So, there you go. I mean, this movie was a big success. Huge success. Definitely the type of success that they expected. You know, a lot of kids went to see this movie. A lot of families went to see this movie. And they came out in droves. The voice cast of this movie is pretty good. You have Sandra Bullock. You have John Hamm, Michael Keaton, Allison Janney, Steve Coogan, who all starred in this film. And, you know, they had... They were in this film, but critically, actually was the biggest surprise out of them all. It only got a 54% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. So very mixed. A very mixed type rating. And so critics didn't really like them as much as they liked the Despicable Me films. Some of the stuff was, one of the complaints was that they didn't have the villain in the Despicable Me movies. His name's Gru, I believe. It's played by Steve Carell. He does not make an appearance. Actually, I think he does make an appearance, but it's just a cameo. Actually, Steve Carell plays young Gru, so a younger version of Gru. So, yeah, Minions was a very big box office success, but it just wasn't the success critically that I think people were expecting. The next film on this list is the movie, it's a smaller movie, but it does have big stars in it, Selfless, which is a science fiction thriller film. This movie... The two main stars in the movie are Ryan Reynolds and Ben Kingsley. Ryan Reynolds, he will forever be immortalized in my mind with National Lampoon's Van Wilder. That was a hilarious movie. Ben Kingsley, veteran actor, he's been around for ages. So, this movie is about basically Ryan Reynolds, his soul and his soul, basically, his body inside of him, he has to, he gets transported, if you will, into Ben Kingsley's body, or Ben Kingsley's body gets transported into Ryan Reynolds' body, and that's basically the plot of the movie right there. And trouble ensues, basically, with that. Because he wants immortality, I guess, in some way. Ben Kingsley, his character does. So, this movie went through a lot of difficulties. It went through some difficulties, but it got released. But it was a box office failure. Budget of $26 million. It only made $13.6 million. So it was not the success that they wanted. And it got very negative reviews on Rotten Tomatoes, 20%. So this movie right here, as well as box office, as well as a box office bomb, it was a critical bomb. So, just not a good movie, basically, in the eyes of critics and fans. The next movie to talk about is the horror movie The Gallows. There are people that were anticipating this movie. For sure, I saw it a lot on TV, a lot of the stuff on TV, commercial-wise. It's a found-footage supernatural horror film, and it stars a lot of no-name actors. pretty much what every horror movie has, a bunch of no-name actors. And, okay, this movie was on a budget of, I just see the budget and it's like, the budget was $100,000. Very meager budget. But the box office, it made $35.8 million, so you have to consider that a big, big success, box office-wise. People went to see this movie. People did go. A lot of horror fans went to see this film. Critically, though, like a lot of horror films these days, it did not do well. 14% on Rotten Tomatoes. A lot of people are sick and tired of found footage horror films, from what I've heard. Definitely. I'm not a big horror fan. I haven't watched a ton of horror movies in my lifetime, but I've heard that the found footage horror films are getting old. That they're tiresome, that they're just not as good as they used to be, and whatnot. So that's The Gallows. Next film on the list is one of the biggest movies, probably one of the biggest movies of the year, in Ant-Man. Ant-Man comes out. I wanted to see this movie. I didn't get to see it in theaters, so I haven't seen it yet. But Ant-Man. Paul Rudd stars as Scott Lang, which is Ant-Man's alter ego. Scott Lang / Ant-Man. You have Michael Douglas, Evangeline Lilly, Bobby Cannavale, Michael Pena, T.I. the rapper, Corey Stoll, Anthony Mackie, and many others. Ant-Man is the story of... I know the story is about a bank robber, a thief, a criminal turned good guy, basically. Paul Rudd is this... Scott Lang is this criminal who spends time in prison. Michael Douglas basically bails him out, gets him out of prison, says, you know, you have a chance to redeem yourself, do good in the world. And Paul Rudd becomes Ant-Man, and there we go. So, Ant-Man... excuse me. Ant-Man wasn't expected to be a... It wasn't expected to draw in Avengers Age of Ultron money. It was not expected to do that. And it didn't. But it was still a pretty good success. It had a budget of $130 million. Box office so far, $296 million. I do believe it is still playing. It came out July 17th, so I do believe it is still playing, but it's on the tail end of its run, probably. But still, the numbers are good. They are really good for this movie because, like I said, they just didn't expect the money that Avengers Age of Ultron pulled in, the money that Avengers pulled in, and all of the other Marvel movies. This was a smaller scale, literally, a smaller scale, no pun intended, Marvel film. Basically. Reviews of the film were good. 79% on Rotten Tomatoes. That's a very solid rating on Rotten Tomatoes right there. So, critics liked it, for the most part. So there's Ant-Man. The last Marvel movie that comes out this year. They had Age of Ultron. I did get to see that. I loved Age of Ultron. Ant-Man, I hope to see someday, definitely. But didn't get to see it in the theaters, but box office and critically, success. The next film. This film really intrigued me. The next film I'm going to talk about really intrigued me in many different ways. I'm a big fan of the Sherlock Holmes film series with Robert Downey Jr. and Jude Law. I like both of the films. I've watched the first one a few times, second one only once, but I remember liking it. Now you deal with an older Sherlock Holmes in the movie Mr. Holmes, starring Ian McKellen as Sherlock Holmes. Ian McKellen, for those of you comic book fans, of course, he is Magneto in the X-Men film series. Some of them X-Men movies, anyway. But this is based on a novel called The Slight Trick of the Mind. The movie's based on it. And this is Sherlock Holmes as an older man, basically. And so yeah, this is Sherlock Holmes years, a 93-year-old Sherlock Holmes, just an older guy. So it deals with that. It has Ian McKellen. Laura Linney is in the film as well. Box office, it drew $15.5 million, which I think was what they were expecting probably from the film. Reception for the film was good. It had an 87% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, which is very good. So this movie was well received. And just an intriguing film, and one that I will definitely see. You know, I like Sherlock Holmes. I really do. I've never seen any of the older movies before or read any of the books, but I got introduced to Sherlock Holmes. Actually, if you remember that animated movie, the Disney animated movie, The Great Mouse Detective, that rips off Sherlock Holmes big time, but it rips it off in a good way. That movie is really good, The Great Mouse Detective. And Mr. Holmes, so it does rip off Sherlock Holmes, and then I got further exposure with the Sherlock Holmes films that Robert Downey Jr. and Jude Law were in. And I like those films a lot. So I would be interested in seeing Mr. Holmes someday in the near future. Alright, the next film that we're going to get into in this list is a comedy. A romantic comedy. Directed by one of the best directors going today, Judd Apatow. And this movie is Trainwreck. This is Amy Schumer. Amy Schumer, for those of you who don't know, stand-up comedian. She has her own show on Comedy Central, Inside Amy Schumer, which is a big success on Comedy Central. And Trainwreck is her first film, not her first film appearance, but her first starring film appearance. And Trainwreck has a bunch of stars. The main stars are Amy Schumer and Bill Hader from Saturday Night Live. Also, you have LeBron James in this movie. Of all people, LeBron James is in this film. You have Brie Larson, John Cena the wrestler, Vanessa Bayer from SNL. Tilda Swinton is in this movie. Daniel Radcliffe is in this film. And many others as well. Colin Quinn from Saturday Night Live is in this movie. And just a big, big cast. And Trainwreck overall did well. $35 million budget, and it made $83.1 million. I think it might be on the tail end of its release. But it might still be in theaters some places, but yeah, it really was so far so good for Trainwreck. It brought in the money I think they were expecting. And critically, 85% on Rotten Tomatoes. It was very good. It was a very good approval rating for a comedy. So comedies tend to get more in the mixed variety. A lot of them tend to get negative reviews. This one, very positive reviews. People liked Amy Schumer's first starring outing. And, yeah, people responded well to this film. And I believe the movie's about Amy Schumer's this woman who doesn't commit to men, She sleeps with a lot of men. And then she meets this doctor, played by Bill Hader, that is the one, basically. This is basically a romantic comedy film staple, you know. Guy or girl can't get tied down with somebody else, and then they find the right person, basically. That's what a romantic comedy usually does. But yeah, Trainwreck was not a train wreck of a movie. It was a success. And it's been a success. People saw it, and I think they really did enjoy it. Next film on the list. And I'm going to talk about this one because I saw the movie recently. I saw the movie a couple days ago with my special guest, Arkham Assassin. And that was Smosh the movie. Smosh the movie, for those of you who don't know, it's based off of... Smosh is this popular YouTube site. They have Smosh comedy, Smosh video games, and whatnot. They have like 3 separate channels, and I know 2 of them are comedy and video games. Well, my friend Arkham Assassin, the guy who does Arkham Assassin, he introduced me to this film. And while he enjoyed the film very much, I have a review of that, actually. I will put that up probably today. I have a review of Smosh the movie. This is just a movie that was released on iTunes, I believe. You know, let's see here. It has a budget of $1 million, so it wasn't, I don't know if it was a theatrical release. I'm not really sure if it was a theatrical release or anything like that. It was released worldwide July 24th, and I talked about, I'm not going to go too much into this because I did talk about the movie in my review of the movie. But some of the main people, the 2 main people are Ian Hecox and Anthony Padilla, who are on the Smosh channel and who are YouTube stars. And some other YouTube stars like Grace Helbig and Jenna Marbles, they star in this movie as well, or do more or less cameos. And without going too much into it, I hated this movie. I really hated it. It was just not my type of comedy, basically. I figured out I have a type of comedy from watching this film, and I really did not like the movie at all. And a lot of mixed reviews with this movie, too. So probably either people loved it or hated it. And there you go. So the next film that I'm going to be talking about is the movie Paper Towns. There's a lot of movies that were released in July that were of good quality. Definitely. Paper Towns is the next one. It's a romantic comedy, I believe. It's a mystery comedy drama film. And it's about this guy. I haven't seen the movie. It's about this guy who meets this girl that is the love of his life, that kind of, their love kind of is on the edge. Basically, she does a lot of naughty things with him. You know, just naughty things around town and things like that. But then she goes missing, and they have to try to find her. The guy has to try to find her. Paper Towns came out July 24th, and it was successful. On a budget of $12 million, it made $51.6 million. So, big success. Critically, It got mixed reviews. It got a 57% on Rotten Tomatoes, so it wasn't the critical success that people probably expected it to be. But it actually, this movie is based on the 2008 novel of the same name by John Green. And this is weird. This is weird, definitely. But I had a classmate back at my old school, Brushton, it's a little school called Brushton Moira Central School. One of my classmates' names was John Green. So that's kind of weird, John Green, the author John Green, also wrote the movie The Fault in Our Stars. Or he wrote the book The Fault in Our Stars, which was made into a movie last year. So yeah, Paper Towns was a box office success. Critically, it was mixed. So on to the next movie. And it is the latest Adam Sandler comedy, Pixels. Adam Sandler, Kevin James is in this movie, Peter Dinklage from Game of Thrones, Michelle Monaghan, Ashley Benson, and many others as well. Jane Krakowski from 30 Rock. So Pixels are about video games, basically, video game alien life forms that invade Earth because they take a message the wrong way from America. America sends them this message, they take it the wrong way, and they come to invade Earth. And it's up to Adam Sandler and the crew to stop them. So, the movie so far, and it might still be out, budget of $88 million, it's only made $105 million so far. So, definitely it isn't the success that they envisioned it to be. And so it wasn't the success that they envisioned it to be. And opening weekend, I believe. Opening weekend, that was my cat, sorry about that. Opening weekend wasn't as successful as they hoped it to be either, so it just wasn't a big success. And it's another Adam Sandler comedy that just tanked, more or less. Blended was not a huge success last year. Blended, the comedy with Drew Barrymore and Adam Sandler, didn't do as well. This one didn't do very well. It has an 18% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes, which is very characteristic of Adam Sandler movies. They get low reviews. Critics hate the guy. They really do. So, Adam Sandler is going to be going to Netflix on a four-picture deal. This is because films like Pixels and Blended just aren't doing as well. He's not the star he used to be. So there you go. Next film on the list is more of a smaller film. More or less a smaller film. And that movie is Southpaw, a boxing movie. Much out of the reign of Rocky, the Rocky films. Jake Gyllenhaal is the lead star in this film. So it's Jake Gyllenhaal, Rachel McAdams, and Forrest Whitaker. And also Tyrese Gibson makes an appearance in the movie as well. I did not know that. Tyrese Gibson, of course, from Fast and Furious. Southpaw is about this wrestler. He is about this boxer on the road to redemption, basically. He loses custody of his daughter, and on the road to redemption. It's a sports drama film. On a budget of $25 million so far, the movie's made $44.2 million. So for the type of small movie it was a pretty solid success. Mixed reviews, though, from critics. For Rotten Tomatoes, critics gave it a 58% overall. And I've heard that this movie is very cliched, that it deals with a lot of boxing cliches. So I heard that. And so, but overall, I think they're happy with what Southpaw did. It was directed by Antoine Fuqua, who was also directed The Equalizer last year, which I loved. Equalizer was a really good movie. Training Day, I think he also, another Denzel Washington film. He directed 2 Denzel Washington films, Training Day and The Equalizer. And probably some others as well. I just can't think of them right now. The next film on the list. There's a couple more films left. There's 2 left. And they just came out last weekend. Both of them did. Well, actually, this one that I'm going to be talking about, it came out last Wednesday. And that movie was Vacation. The new version of Vacation in the Vacation series. It's the 5th movie in the National Lampoon Vacation series. There's National Lampoon's Vacation, there's European Vacation, there's Christmas Vacation, and then there's Vegas Vacation. And the original Vacation, European, and Christmas, they all came out in the 80s. Excuse me. And then Vegas Vacation came out in the late 90s. 97, I think. So Vacation follows the son of Rusty Griswold, I think the character's name was. I've never seen any of the National Lampoon Vacation movies. Never seen any of them. But, I've heard good things, definitely. I've heard very good things about them. So this is kind of the son carries on the legacy of the first Vacation movie. They go back to Wally World, which is kind of the setting, the main setting, more or less, of the first Vacation movie. Overall, it has a $31 million budget. So far, it's made $25 million. So, this movie's slated for pretty good box office totals. Critically, it has a 25% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, so critics didn't really like the movie very much. A few of my friends went to see it, and they thought it was good. My mom and dad went to see it. They thought it was good. I haven't seen it yet, and I would love to see it someday, but I'm hearing good things about it, so it makes me confident that I'll really like it in the future. And the final movie that I'm going to be talking about for July came out the very last day of July. And that was the 5th Mission Impossible movie, Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. Excuse me. So Mission Impossible Rogue Nation continues on with the Mission Impossible franchise. Tom Cruise, of course, plays Ethan Hunt. Jeremy Renner returns from, I think, 4. Simon Pegg also returns from 4. Ving Rhames has been in all 5, I think. Alec Baldwin's a new character in the film, and I think Rebecca Ferguson is a new character in the film as well. But Rogue Nation, it's basically 5 people from the IMF, which I think is the agency in the film. I could be wrong. In the Mission Impossible series. It's like 5 people against a whole army, basically, of mercenaries or something like that. Now, I've only watched the first Mission Impossible movie, so I've only watched number 1. I didn't think it was all that great when I watched it at first. I couldn't really understand it. I wasn't thrilled with Tom Cruise and his portrayal of Ethan Hunt. Not really thrilled with it. But saying that, it was a long time ago that I saw that movie. I haven't seen any of the other ones. So I definitely want to revisit the first one and then go on to 2, 3, and 4, and then hopefully someday I get to see 5. Box office so far for Mission Impossible 5. On a budget, its budget is $150 million. Box office so far, $134.5 million. Good numbers. Very good numbers for Mission Impossible. So definitely what they wanted. It's just kind of a weekend thing. Its opening weekend, it took in $55.5 million at the box office. So the U.S. box office, it took $55.5 million. So it was a success, definitely, opening weekend. Critically, the movie has a 93% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, which I believe is the highest rating that a Mission Impossible movie has gotten. I'm not really sure about Ghost Protocol, which was the 4th one, but I think the 5th one had the highest for Rotten Tomatoes. So, it's going to be a juggernaut at the box office. It will be. You know, I don't know if it's going to pull in $1 billion. I'm just not sure about that. But it's going to bring in its money. It definitely is going to be a moneymaker. It's a summer action popcorn movie. So it's definitely going to get butts in the seats for sure. No doubt about it. And Tom Cruise just continues to prove that he's not done anymore. You know, Edge of Tomorrow came out last year, and that was such a surprise hit. And now Mission Impossible 5 comes out, and these movies just prove that Tom Cruise is still a bankable action star. So there you go. And that is it for the movies in July. Now, real quickly, just a sneak preview of August. There's some interesting movies that are coming out in August. Dark Places, which is a drama mystery thriller. It has Charlize Theron, Christina Hendricks, and Chloe Grace Moretz, the young actress. The reboot of Fantastic Four is coming in August as well. Miles Teller, Michael B. Jordan, Kate Mara, and company are going to be in the film. This interesting little thriller, The Gift, is going to be in theaters in August. It has Jason Bateman, Rebecca Hall, and Joel Edgerton as the main characters. Jason Bateman not in a comedy for once. So I haven't really seen him in anything besides a comedy. Ricky and the Flash, which is the latest Meryl Streep movie. Meryl Streep, the actress who's been nominated for an Academy Award 19 times, and she's won 3. So there you go. Ricky and the Flash, I think Meryl Streep's this rocker who didn't quite hit it to the top when she was younger. Didn't quite achieve popularity when she was younger, but she's trying to gain popularity in older age. So that movie's coming out. The Man from U.N.C.L.E., a 60s, 50s spy thriller film starring Henry Cavill and Henry Cavill, best known as Superman, and Armie Hammer. So that movie's coming out. Straight Outta Compton is going to hit in theaters in August, nationwide, I think. And this movie, one of the big actors in this movie is Paul Giamatti. Straight Outta Compton is the story about NWA and their rise to fame as a hip-hop rap group. American Ultra is coming out in August with Jesse Eisenberg and Kristen Stewart. This is an action comedy, a different type of action comedy that you'll be seeing probably. Hitman, Agent 47, which is the sequel to the movie Hitman, which came out came out a few years ago anyway. It might have been actually 2005 or something like that. So you'll look for that in theaters. Sinister 2, I'm not sure how real big it is, but it's a horror film, so I thought I'd mention it. Z for Zachariah, which has 3 heavyweight actors. Chiwetel Ejiofor, Chris Pine, and Margot Robbie. And it's a drama, action, sci-fi film. Regression, which is a movie with Ethan Hawke and Emma Watson. It's a thriller. Let's see here. And the last one, actually, that's pretty much it. Pretty much the big movies that I've heard of that are coming out in August. So I will definitely be talking about those movies in August. And I realize this is a long video and all that, but there you go. I have a lot of opinions about the movie and movies and all that, even though I didn't see a single film in July. I didn't. Well, actually, I saw Ted 2, but that came out in June. And I didn't see any July films that came out in July. So I hope to get to the theater again at least a few more times. I hope so. I really hope so, because I love movies so much. So that is it for my video on the July movies review and then the August movies preview. At the end of August, I will be doing an August movie review, and then I'll kind of look into what's coming in September. So, until then, D-Rock 1992 out.